Hi, Tushar. Thank you so much for coming on today and congratulations on your massive 740 score.
Hi, Rida. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
So for everyone here who doesn't really know you and who you are, give us a brief on about yourself.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Tushar. I am a computer science engineer by training. I work in tech consulting. Uh, I have around 3.5 to 4 years of work experience. And using this MBA, I'm trying to make the switch from the tech to the strategy side of things.
So you're not just trying to advance in a career, you're also trying to pivot fields so that GMAT piece becomes really important in your MBA applications. So how did you really start thinking about the GMAT and preparing for the same?
Yes. So I'm using the GMAT. I'm using the MBA for the pivot. I honestly feel that business side of things. So that is why I think I'm going for the MBA. As you said, GMAT becomes a very important part of the whole process because I'll be able to demonstrate my capabilities and also the fact that I'll be able to handle the expectations in the coming role. So definitely, I think GMAT becomes an important tool in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then you understood the importance of the GMAT, the value in that GMAT. So how did you really start your GMAT journey in preparing for the exam? And when did you start it actually?
Yeah, so with respect to the GMAT, I started thinking seriously about the GMAT in mid 2021. I was contemplating my career options and where I wanted to be in the long term. And it was also the time of the second wave of COVID, so I also had some time to myself to think through it very deeply and to weigh in my options. So that is when I kind of zeroed down that an MBA would be a good would be the correct path to take in this aspect. And naturally, after that, I started to research about the GMAT, various like firstly about the curriculum, about the test itself, and then probably I started weighing on options as to how I can prepare better for the GMAT.
Okay. So then I guess you kind of found us, right? You found a way to start preparing. So how did you find e-GMAT and how did that journey start really?
Yeah, so I firstly I just utilized web search for understanding about GMAT and the various test prep companies that exist. So initially I subscribed to another test prep company, but it didn't work out actually as per my expectations. I didn't really get a very representative idea about the GMAT and its questions. So after a couple of weeks with the other company, I again went to some forums, tried to understand the reviews of various other test prep companies, and that is when I saw that e-GMAT was a very high ranked high rated test prep company, and I decided to attend one of the strategy sessions that was being hosted by Rajat. And then in that webinar, I subsequently I signed up for a free strategy webinar, and I met with one of the strategy experts. They guided me with where I was at and how should I move ahead with it. So before this, I actually had attempted the first OG free mock, and I got a 670 in that. So with this score, I went into that webinar, and what I found was that I was lacking on both verbal and quant skills, and they had a plan in mind. And then I moved ahead with e-GMAT for the rest of my preparation journey.
So when you came on, I know that you started initially with verbal and you started off with master comprehension in verbal. So how do you think that course really set the foundations for all the other verbal courses to come?
Yeah, so as I was going through the whole process and the recommended paths that I should take, right? So master comprehension was the first one. I think what it did was it set me at a good place to receive all the other information or data that is going to come to me with respect to the preparation, right? So the importance of punctuation, the importance of pausing, all of that. I was doing it subconsciously on some level, but it was not very clear that this would be a very important, uh, it would be a very important part of the whole improvement plan, right?
Mhm.
So just being cognizant of these small points and focusing on these points, I think uh, that was basically what master comprehension enabled me to do. And moving ahead, I was able to see that yes, like this was a very important point and it can be a difference maker also going forward. So of course, I think that's a very that's the starting point that everyone should take for the course.
So it made that act of reading a lot more intentional and brought out those aspects of reading that you were doing a lot. It brought them to the forefront. It made you, how do you say, conscious that you were exerting all of those skills in each and every question or in each and every passage, essentially.
Yes, yes, definitely.
I know that once you completed master comprehension, you moved on to sentence correction. So how did your approach pre and post the SC course really change and evolve?
Yeah, so prior to the SC course, what I was doing was I was relying a lot on the meaning and how the sentence sounded, and I was making decisions based on that. But and of course, that's where some of the mistakes were happening. A lot of the mistakes were happening wherein I was not aware of what should the appropriate grammar be in this sentence, right? So that is where I think the course comes in. It's an amalgamation of you want to understand the meaning as well as the grammar that is associated with the sentence, and the course is designed in such a way that you have all the topics at hand. So I was able to identify that this is a particular portion of the sentence wherein I'm faltering, and then I can directly go and see through that whole portion, right? And I think that's where the course is designed in such a way to optimize time also for working professionals. So you can just take the diagnostic quiz and you can see wherein you falter, and then you can focus on those specific areas. So that led to a lot of efficiency in my approach as well. And I was able to see the improvement day by day, week by week, using the cementing methods and the test readiness quizzes as well. The ability quizzes were also a big part of this, wherein I was able to track actually what is my pace of improvement and what is my extent of improvement within this subsection.
Mhm. Through all these quizzes.
Yes, yes, through all these quizzes. So firstly, I was going through um, the quizzes within the section itself, wherein we have the practice problems, the practice quizzes, and then the application quizzes as well. So I think within the section itself, I was getting a lot of questions to work on to see that improvement in effect almost instantaneously. And then once I was able to do this for a bunch of sections, that is when I could move ahead with the cementing quiz, and I could see that across these topics, right, I'm able to improve and I'm able to um, think in a very different way for these questions.
Mhm. Okay. So it was again a gradual process of constantly quizzing yourself and improving as well from one quiz to the next. Because you mentioned that there was that constant improvement piece.
Yes, yes. So there's constant improvement. I spent like about a couple of weeks on SC, just trying to go through the entire course, trying to understand all of the pitfalls or all of the uh, what can I say, the subsections within SC, right? So parallelism, modifiers, or even idioms for that matter, right? So people are not very so there's a limited number of idioms that one knows, but GMAT tests you on a number of idioms. So I think all of these sections were very helpful in kind of getting me up to speed on different questions types that can come within GMAT SC. And because it's a very adaptive process, it's also very optimized in that sense. Although it's a gradual process, but you will feel the improvement coming on almost on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And I know that as you were doing things like cementing and taking mixed quizzes and all of that, you were also maintaining an error log, right? So talk to me a little bit about that. How did that kind of feature into your preparation?
Yeah, so I would like to tell that initially I was not thinking that error log is a very big part and I was tracking it very efficiently because it was more about it was some level of effort involved in doing that. But eventually I found that using that error log is a very it puts you in a place of advantage and you can almost accelerate your improvement within that subsection. So so once I started keeping an error log, I was able to identify patterns within my questions and approach, right? Where what were some of the common pits where I was falling continuously, and how can I improve on that? What was my thought process while I was kind of attempting this question, and why was that something that led me to an incorrect question option, right? Or why did this thinking lead to more than expected time on this question, right? So if I have spent 30 extra seconds on a question, that already puts me in a place of disadvantage while I'm thinking about a very time sensitive exam like the GMAT.
Absolutely.
Right. So using the error log, I think I was able to identify these patterns and then work on them specifically so that I can improve on them, right? And once you do it for a sufficient number of questions, it will automatically register that this is some place that you need to be very careful while you're attempting a question, because this is some place historically you've been making mistakes in this part, right? So that is where I think the error log comes into place, and it puts you in a very advantageous position when you are tackling an adaptive test like the GMAT.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Especially because with an exam like the GMAT, you don't want to make the same mistake twice, right? You don't want to make the same mistake across multiple questions. You want to identify and work on that and allow the space to make new mistakes. So I'm really glad that that error log piece allowed you to do that. It allowed you to refine your process, refine your strategy. And in the end, that obviously really paid off. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So then from SC, you moved to critical reasoning. So what was your process with critical reasoning? How did that journey kind of go?
Yeah, so for critical reasoning, initially what I was doing was I was just going through the passage and then kind of um, so in the very initial phases, what I was doing was I was just going through the passage, thinking about it for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then jumping to the answer choices. What it was doing was it was not allowing me to go into sufficient depth and what the author was actually trying to communicate. Right. And that is where I think a lot of mistakes were coming early on. If none of the option choices were according to what I was thinking or the understanding that I had about the passage, then um, I was spending way too long on these questions, probably 3 minutes or more in some occasions as well. So then, while going through the entire, and that is where the master comprehension also comes into place, because it allowed me to understand the significance of the punctuation marks that are there. What is the hidden intended meaning of the author, right? So what he communicates even when it's not written, that is something that I got to understand. And slowly and steadily, what I was doing was I was spending some more time on understanding the meaning of the passage, trying to understand what the author intends to communicate, and then come up with a situation based on the question type. So if it's an assumption, like what is one of those assumptions that he has made, right? But after going through a sufficient questions with respect to the course, right, then I got to understand that there is a pre-thinking approach that e-GMAT recommends. And what it allows me to do is it allows me to generalize those assumptions or those factors into a framework. So then I won't have to rely on my examples, and I won't have to keep looking for my examples within those option choices. If it is something that relates with the framework, it would be it would be worth exploring, it would be worth focusing on, right? So that is where I was able to narrow down to the last couple of option choices and then really kind of drill down on what could be the correct answer with respect to that. So I think pre-thinking was very helpful in that aspect.
I'm really glad. I can see that there was a real evolution in terms of the way that you looked at, CR questions. And I can also say that the way that you tackled master comprehension and the way that you tackled sentence correction, it also had an impact on the way that you looked at actually understanding what a CR argument is trying to tell you.
Yes, definitely. I think that really helped also, just trying to, and also I had this timing problem with respect to CR, right, wherein I was spending a lot of time. That is where I understood, and it was a very controversial advice that I would see that, the expert were recommending that to spend 10-15 seconds on thinking about that framework, coming up with examples to support that framework. So initially I was a bit hesitant, but as I went ahead with it, I think that leads to a lot of time saving because I wasn't going back to the passage just to read it through and understand all over again what the author is trying to say. I think that framework eventually saves a lot of time. Initially, you need some practice to get acquainted with it, to get it in your habit of thinking. But eventually, I think that helps a lot when I'm talking about test-based conditions.
Okay. I'm really glad that all of that really culminated into one very, very happy picture, I would say. Yeah. So then from CR, I think you moved to RC. So how did it feel coming to RC after you've already done so much work on verbal?
Yeah, so RC, so with respect to RC, right, I was always at that position that I could understand the passage relatively well, but I could not drill down into the details of the inferences, or even the main point of the passage was confusing at times. So after coming from master comprehension and CR for that matter to RC, I think it was I was able to see improvement initially, and just from the start I was able to see that I was able to draw the inferences well, I was able to connect the dots well, and I also tried to, again, through the course, right, it was also told that we should have a paragraph by paragraph summary that should be registered, right, and then you can kind of weave it together to get the whole idea of the passage. So that was also very helpful. I spent some amount of time just trying to get that into my thought process, even jotting down a few one-liners or a few words for each paragraph. And then once I look back, I have the entire picture of the passage, for myself, just to go through the whole passage once again. That was a very it again put me in a very advantageous position, because earlier what I was doing was I had to go through the passage a couple of times, and then for specific questions as well, I had to go through, I had to identify which section is it and then try to draw inferences out of it. But once I have the entire summary of the passage on my fingertips, right, then it's very easy, and it actually optimizes a lot of time within the test environment. You can cut down maybe on a couple of minutes or more within the test environment on a per passage basis. So that also put me on a very advantageous situation.
Okay, so it was as though you really you thought you were already at a good position with RC, but these minor enhancements, these subtle changes, they really ended up saving you a lot of time in the long run for that entire exam point of view.
Yes, definitely. I think it put me in a very comfortable spot when I was going into the examinations, I was at a very comfortable spot with respect to RC because I knew that my improvements within CR are also supporting that. And because I was so initially also I was someone that was comfortable reading through long passages, but to summarize it and to have that in your memory the entire time is another ball game altogether, right? So the the exercises and the topics within that course helped me move ahead in that direction as well. So definitely I think improvement all across, and that kind of it reflects within my scores as well.
Okay, that's really great. So from this verbal section, then I assume you moved to quant. How did you kind of structure your quant preparation as a whole, and how did that really progress?
Yeah, so in terms of quant, initially I think I did not need a lot of support in quant, or I was at a fairly good position myself. But I think just going through the mocks and going through the ability quizzes in e-GMAT, right? They kind of showed me the real picture that where I am, and also that improvement is needed across subsections. So for quant also, because it's a very adaptive environment at e-GMAT, the platform is very adaptive, and this pace that was newly introduced while I was kind of going through the quant, I think that made me pace. Uh, that's a pun, that is intended, but I was able to pace my preparation in a very efficient manner. Given that I'm a working professional, I only have a limited amount of time that I can give to the prep. So I think that is where that pace engine came in very handy. I was able to identify very quickly where I was lacking using the diagnostic tests, right? And I was able to drill down only on those specific portions of the entire section. And what happened was, while I was going, and once I was able to go through these sections, right, then again, the entire structure that we have created with respect to cementing quizzes, with respect to uh, the ability quizzes that we have for each of these subsections, right, that came in very handy. And I was able to progress on it on at a speed that I wouldn't have been able to were I going through all of the blocks one by one, all of the files one by one. Then it would have been a different scenario. I would have taken probably a month ahead, a month extra, right? If that was this situation. So I think that's where that is really one of the strengths of the e-GMAT's Quant platform. That it allowed me to kind of progress on my terms and improve on my terms, uh, and only where necessary, where it was absolutely necessary. Right. So I think, yeah, that was from my quant perspective, how I just went about the whole course.
Wonderful. And really, if I can, I'll take a second to show people your stats on the platform, because truly they really speak for themselves, and the amount of effort that you put in. Your hard accuracy in verbal, is at an 80% for CR and RC, 60% for RC, sorry. And in quant as well, your stats are really phenomenal. And what all of these statistics really go to show, your accuracy goes to show, is that you had primed yourself for success. You'd reached a level of comfort with both medium and hard questions that you could comfortably tackle any type of question that really came into the test. And seeing these stats, especially in quant, goes to show that you were very streamlined in your approach. You were able to identify and eliminate any weaknesses such that you could achieve such high accuracies across the board. Really.
Yeah.
Right. So from there, you'd finished verbal, you'd finished quant. What was the next kind of step in your preparation?
Yeah, so I think after I had finished these courses, right, then my focus was on simulating this entire, the preparation that I had and the abilities that I had. Was it, could it be emulated in a test environment where the pressure is so high, where I have to kind of make decisions as to what's working for me and what's not working for me. So then I kind of focused onto the test readiness, and that's where I think we spent our energy, we spent like the maximum amount of time, right, just trying to, excuse me, going into the test with that mindset, right, wherein I can I can make those decisions in a test environment. I can really, and it's a time sensitive test again. So I really need to see where I'm spending my energy and how I can optimize the limited time that I have. So what we did was kind of, we tried to simulate those quant and verbal sections. We had like these 31 question um, quant quizzes, or the 36 question verbal quizzes, and of course the e-GMAT, the algorithm is such that it really mirrors the experience that one has within GMAT, right? So we were able to kind of get those questions of those difficulty level that I was expecting when I would be at a high score, right? So I was able to get that real time and a very reflective test environment that would be there in a GMAT environment.
So then you'd kind of showed up all your defenses, you'd hit every metric that you needed to reach, and then you actually went for the exam, right? The first time around. So what was that kind of like for you?
Yeah, so for the first exam, what I was doing was I was focusing a lot on mock test readiness. So I was giving a lot of mock exams, and trying to, I was just trying to reinforce the idea that I was ready for the test and I could give it, at that point of time. And what actually ended up happening was I gave a little bit too many tests and way too close to the exam date. So not able to relax as I would have wanted to. Although the mocks were showing that I was reaching a 740, 750 level, and the scores were speaking for that, OG as well as the e-GMAT, mocks. But I ended up getting a 680, and of course that was kind of heartbreaking. And I had to kind of evaluate my options. I had to understand what went wrong within that attempt, right? And so that's when I kind of reached out to e-GMAT for support and guidance. And I also heard about the LMP, last mile program. So I also wanted to check if that is something that could help me. So that's when I think you stepped in, and we had that call wherein we kind of evaluated what could have gone wrong within the attempt, and how can we make it right for the upcoming attempts.
Yeah, because also that first attempt was an online attempt, right? We didn't have an ESR to work with. We didn't have that kind of real-time data about your timing across the blocks, what subsections held you back. So we had to do a lot of in-depth analysis over call, trying to understand what actually went wrong, correlating it with the data on your account, and really tackling those weaknesses. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that is one of the disadvantages of the online attempts. Although it's good, it's in the comfort of your home. But honestly, I was not aware that I would not get an ESR. But yeah, that is where I think you stepped in, and we were able to kind of understand what could have gone wrong based on my recollection of how the attempt went. And I think it was really helpful to just understand, your perspective also as to what were some of the mistakes that I could have made within the attempt.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, I mean, for everyone out there, right, let them know how you really worked from that 680 attempt onwards, and then all the way down to your 740, that big success. So what were the changes that you really brought about? What kind of tools did you use? What did you really enhance along that journey?
Yeah. So for me, I think it was a very, so I would say it's been one of the toughest um, time I've been within my academic or my professional career, because as we got to understand, it was not just about improving on the abilities. It had a lot to do with the mental mindset and the attitude that you go into the exam with, right?
Mhm.
So what we did was, we improved on the abilities within the subsections. We were able to identify what would have been um, a point where I had missed,
Mhm.
that was leading to suboptimal scores, so to speak. So initially, I think we drilled down a lot into some of those subsections, trying to improve on abilities within those subsections. But then again, before the attempt, we were giving the mock exams and we were seeing constant improvements. I was seeing scores around 760 before some of the attempts, right? And it was a boost of confidence to me. But going into the exams, what was happening was I was feeling a lot of so exam anxiety was kicking in, right? And what
Mhm.
was happening was I was not able to get a control on my mind, so to say, within the exam, right? And it was like a domino effect. If some one
Mhm.
thing was going wrong, then basically the entire subsection was getting affected because of that. So that's where I think what helped a lot was discussions with you, just to maybe develop a mindset wherein you are detached from the expectations, right? From the
Mhm.
expectations of your result. Uh, and that's where I think we focused a lot of energy. And within the test readiness quizzes also, like we were giving, right, between those attempts, I think my focus was a lot on just trying to stay true to the process, not
Mhm.
taking any shortcuts within those processes, and just trying to mentally keep that in mind that uh, it's not like the result would come later on. You don't need to mess up your subsection because of that. You just need to focus on the question at hand, and then probably I think that helped a lot for me. Also, I think with respect to the mocks, because we were timing it so well, I was getting a good 2 days of relaxation before the exams. That is where I can really develop that mindset, going relaxed into the exam environment. Right. So I think all of these, a combination of these things, error log as well. I cannot stress it enough that error logs would help you within like between attempts also. They will help you a lot, because whatever test readiness quizzes that I was giving, whatever mocks that I was giving, I was
Mhm.
constantly analyzing those. I was trying to bucket them into what could be the common pitfalls, and where I would kind of what are my common areas where or common question types where I'm kind of getting stuck. So I
Mhm.
think a combination of all of these factors, really led me to step up from that 680 and then eventual 740.
Mhm. And I think in between also you had that one kind of secret, how do you say, element or secret weapon in your arsenal where you got to really drill down individually on CR and RC with Harsha as well, right? You really got to drill down into that piece. So how do you think that kind of subject matter support helped you in that space?
Yeah, I think that was, thanks for bringing it up, by the way. I think that was one of the most important aspects before my best attempt, right? Because what I was observing was that um, despite all my improvements within CR, I was faltering in some of the toughest questions. And I was unable to figure out why this is happening, right? Even because through the error log, I was kind of writing down what was happening, but I could not like I was not able to understand the corrective actions for that and how I can improve on the very basic mindset while I'm attempting these questions, right? And I think that's where, thanks to you, we got that session. I got that session with Harsha, wherein he spent an extensive amount of time with me, just trying to understand what are some of my common pitfalls, where exactly within the entire process am I faltering, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not giving enough time to some of those aspects, or if I am kind of rushing through, suppose answer choice analysis or
Mm-hmm.
pre-thinking for that matter, right? I think because we were able to kind of go through 4, 5, 6 CR questions, two really tough RC passages. I think that helped a lot in kind of priming me for where I should focus on when it comes to these some of the toughest questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what should be my approach to these questions while also being cognizant of the time that I'm spending on these questions. Of course, because they are some of the toughest questions, they will take a little more than the usual time. But how to
Mm-hmm.
optimize the time within that, right? So one of the suggestions he gave me was kind of spending 10-15 seconds on pre-thinking and then spending a little more time on the answer choice analysis as well, because what I was observing was I was able to understand the passage really well, but during answer choice analysis there would be some of the assumptions that I missed,
Mm-hmm.
that would make or break that answer choice, right? So on those very subtle nuances, I think that session was a game changer for me in terms of how I approach some of the tough questions for RC and CR.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So all of this kind of culminated in your 740, where one, you had drilled down on how to handle even the toughest questions. You'd build up those very, very important test readiness skills, not just in terms of timing yourself, tackling each question, but also the mindset that you really needed. And I think three, also you walked in with that confidence that this is something that I can achieve. I just have to execute on those skills that I've spent so long and so much hard work on actually achieving and internalizing.
Yes, absolutely. I think it was a culmination of all of the hard work that we as a team put in. I think you've been with me for this entire success story, right? And I think close to about 4 to 5 months that we've been having these discussions and trying to improve on certain aspects. I think all of that has come out in a way that I'm kind of satisfied,
Mhm.
and I'm really able to see that 740, and that GMAT is not a very big factor now. As I was seeing when
Mhm.
I had that 680, right, I was not confident of applying to the best schools out there for me. But now that I have this 740, at least I'm in a position that I can place my applications in such a way that I can kind of reach out for those target schools that I have in mind.
Mhm.
So I think all of that has come up really beautifully, for this journey.
Wonderful. And I'm so, so, so glad that we could reach this stage together, right? So if you had to tell something to all those GMAT aspirants out there, maybe they're just starting out, maybe they've given their first attempt and like you, they want to improve, what would you really want them to know?
Yeah, so what I would suggest is that kind of, uh, so it would take time to kind of reach to your target score. If you have a less than ideal score, and if you're getting kind of demotivated, don't kind of get into that demotivated zone that this is the end of the line. So what I would suggest them is just try to keep at it, try to optimize. I know like many working professionals, um you know uh, from their busy schedules, they kind of take time out for the GMAT, and when they don't have a very ideal score, they kind of get demotivated. So I'll just say that, just keep at it. Maybe it's the next attempt that will do wonders for you. But I think just trying to persevere through it would be, and you will get your target score in the end.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So I don't think I want to add anything to that. I'd just like to say congratulations once again on that 740. V40 and a Q50 are both really, really amazing scores to achieve. And I'm so, so glad to have been part of that journey with you.
Thanks a lot, Ridha. I think it would have been a lot tougher, maybe next to impossible, if it wasn't for the support that you and the team gave. So thanks a lot for that. Looking forward, that what all I can do now with this score and where I can go. So thanks a lot for this.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for you for wherever you're going to go, and that wherever you want to go, you'll get there. But thank you once again, and all the very best for what comes next.
Thanks a lot, Ridha. Thank you.